Hello, everyone. Welcome to America's Forum for Wildlife. My name is Diane Pataki, and I'm the Chief Scientist and Vice President for Science of the National Wildlife Federation. And I am here to give a very warm welcome to everybody who is taking the time to come here today and speak out on behalf of conservation science. So I'm going to give you a little overview of what we're going to do today. This is a forum, and as such, it is designated to elevate as many voices as possible and many perspectives to Congress and the administration. So we're going to be hearing from a lot of speakers today. And we're going to be moving kind of quickly through this event. It is going to be recorded so that we can take all of your voices directly to Capitol Hill. Okay, some attendees have been selected to speak, but all of us, every single person on this call today, will be contacting our members of Congress together in unison at the end of the call. I'm going to give you a little overview of what's happening to federal conservation programs, and then we're going to hear from some amazing speakers who are coming from the federal government, from the nonprofit sector, community leaders, youth leaders. So let's get into the program. And I'm going to tell you what is happening to our federal conservation programs. We are holding this forum now today because Congress is about to return from their August recess, and they're going to get back to the business of finalizing next year's federal budget. So how does the budget process work? Sam, if you could put up the slide, please. Every year, the president sends a budget proposal to Congress. And this year, the president prepared what was known as the skinny budget. And it slashed conservation and science program funding across the board, but you spoke out against the skinny budget. Okay, so this is the second in a series of events that we've held. And in the first event, you signed action alerts, you made phone calls, you came to a virtual rally. So those of you who attended and took those actions, thank you. Because of what you did, the House and the Senate did not enact the president's budget. Many of the conservation programs that we've been speaking out about are funded in the current House and Senate appropriation bills. So right now, the House and the Senate, they have separate budgets. Those budgets need to be reconciled to pass a spending bill. That's where we are now. Congress has not yet passed a final budget for next year. So we need to put pressure on the House and Senate to fully fund conservation programs. So there are still threats to these programs in terms of budget cuts. But budget cuts are not the only threat. And we are seeing the agencies right now as we speak, drastically cutting back on staff. There have been reductions in force, which are firings. There have been incentive programs to persuade people to leave federal service. There have been reassignments, just moving people out of programs. And in some cases, the administration is proposing to fully eliminate some programs altogether. Some of the most important programs in conservation and environmental science are under threat of complete elimination. I will show you a couple of those. And finally, there's relocations. There is a plan to physically relocate certain programs to different parts of the country. And that's another way to essentially force people to quit their jobs. Okay, so here are the specific programs that we're talking about. The Ecosystems Mission Area of the U.S. Geological Survey. This is a cornerstone of conservation science. We've had a whole rally on behalf of the USGS EMA because USGS scientists monitor birds, insects, animal migrations, wildlife diseases, invasive species, and much more. This program is specifically targeted for elimination in Project 2025. So the administration has been trying to eliminate and cut the USGS EMA in multiple ways. Right now, they have an almost total spending freeze, and we're also worried about new staff cuts for biologists at USGS. Everybody probably knows the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but here we want to highlight two programs critical to science, science applications, and the State and Tribal Wildlife Grant Program that sends local funding to your state and your tribal community for monitoring conservation locally. We're also calling special attention to NOAA fisheries because the House bill dramatically cuts funding to this program, which is so essential for marine conservation and for fishing and angling. The U.S. Forest Service is part of USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and all of USDA is subject to a massive proposed reorganization that would close regional offices and laboratories all over the country. And finally, two programs are on the chopping block for total elimination. The EPA Office of Research and Development that safeguards clean air and water based on sound, independent science, and the NASA Earth Science Division that monitors ecosystems and habitat from space. So, what we're asking Congress to do today is to fund all these programs, but also to demand that the funds are actually spent. This means demanding that the agencies and the Office of Management and Budget retain these programs, retain the staff, and halt all unauthorized reorganizations, because right now these changes are not authorized by Congress. So I hope that information is helpful. I know the landscape is very confusing right now. Fortunately, we have a whole host of speakers today to give you even more information. So I want to go right in to our speakers. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is Dr. Jacob Malcolm. And we are so grateful to have Dr. Malcolm, who is the founder and executive director of Next Interior, an organization working to support DOI, the Department of the Interior, the home of our national parks and wildlife refuges, a provider of energy and water, a source of science, and an agency responsible for fulfilling deep obligations to Native Americans. Dr. Malcolm previously served as a senior executive in the Office of the Secretary of the Interior, was the vice president and analyst at Defenders of Wildlife, and got his start as a field biologist in the desert Southwest and the Mid-Atlantic. Welcome, Dr. Malcolm.
Thank you very much for having me here. Hello, everybody. We're going to start off with a simple phrase: science. It keeps us alive. That phrase might seem overly blunt and maybe a little snarky to some, but it's a sentiment that we really need emblazoned on people's minds. As we as individuals talk with our friends and families and coworkers, as organizations communicate with their members, we should remind folks that science, it keeps us alive. We need a healthier relationship between people and science, and particularly for conservation and climate, our relationship, our dependency on nature. We need people to insist that decisions affecting our wildlife and resources today and into the future are informed by science. But if we don't cultivate that relationship between people and science, tough times are ahead. We're seeing today what happens when we collectively take science for granted. The all-out assault on science makes it obvious, from small things like terminating the National Nature Assessment and pulling down the National Climate Assessments, to the massive, mindless gutting of American institutions that fund and enable science. This is a consequence of not paying attention and supporting science. These extreme events have brought society's break with science into focus, but it isn't new. One of the most telling signs of the weakening has been federal funding for science, which hasn't kept up with society's needs for decades. Funding for science, for wildlife, for nature, for the planet, and our relationship with them, it's even worse. The status quo is not and has not been enough for decades. And that's despite the fact, and you know where this is going, science, it keeps us alive. It helps us make decisions so that we have a livable planet, a planet that we have to share with 8 million other species. I think a lot about science and the Department of the Interior. Yes, Interior is parks and wildlife. It's my background. It's on federal lands and it's working with states and tribes and international. But it's also energy and water. And those energy and water decisions affect wildlife, the places they live. They affect the global climate. Interior is a place for science that informs our decisions on how we manage and protect our nation's resources, sometimes at tension, but we make it through. Interior does have a central role in fulfilling our trust and treaty obligations to Native Americans, to Alaska Natives, to Native Hawaiians. Very often, those obligations relate to fish and wildlife, to nature and climate, to land. It's complex, but we have science to help us navigate that complexity. And to be clear, I don't mean just Western science when I'm talking of science. Indigenous knowledges are critical and are an essential part of understanding our world. But like everywhere, science at Interior is under attack. The examples that Diane gave, from USGS ecosystems to Fish and Wildlife Service and beyond. And this is after decades of general disregard. Of course, we should cheer on the appropriators in Congress for not cutting as deeply into funding as the president's budget proposed. That's a vote of support for science and surely responsive to the outcry of proposals to destroy science that have been coming in. But we should also go beyond saying, thanks for not cutting so much. We should ask for more. We need to build support and insist on sufficient funding to fully staff our parks and wildlife refuges and our public lands, to be able to meaningfully and fully engage with tribal nations and fulfill our obligations to them, to do the science that helps us do all of that. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us with the need for action. And so, here are two action items. First, be a voice of funding for our agencies like Interior that are responsible for the science and the actions on which so many people, so many species and ecosystems depend every day. And second, think big and act big for science, whether it's for nature, for the planet, for individuals, or all of us, because science, it keeps us alive. Thanks so much for being here and for speaking up.
Thank you so much for speaking up on behalf of science and sharing with us the importance of DOI and all of the work that it does. DOI is critical to conservation, and we have got to keep it funding and operating. And now I want to introduce our next speaker, Terry Baker, who is the CEO of the Society of American Foresters. He oversees all of SAF's programs and collaborates with his board of directors to establish a strategic vision committed to the scientific, sustainable management of America's forests. Prior to his selection as SAF CEO in 2018, he served in various roles with the USDA Forest Service over 19 years. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you so much, Diane. Excited to talk a bit about research within the U.S. Forest Service. It is oftentimes looked to as a leader in forest research, not only nationally, but also internationally. When we think about what the impacts could be related to some of the changes that have been proposed, and again, share the thoughts that it was great to see that there was funding returned in both the House and the Senate budget for research in the Forest Service. It really stands as a critical core piece of work that is done across the nation, not just on federal lands, but on private lands. Not just in the sense of government and forest productivity, but also for conservation, for habitat within those public lands. And it also serves as a means of getting a lot of dollars out to a variety of research institutions to really help establish our knowledge and understanding of how forests work, how we meet habitat needs, how we balance those with recreational needs, what it looks like to really have these long-range data sets. There's a whole network of experimental forests out there, in addition to the various laboratories and the research stations. So it is an expansive network that really supports many, many aspects of what we do as a nation regarding our nation's forests. And so as I look at what's happening and what we need to do, the importance of science really comes to the top of mind. It was a major topic of conversation earlier this year, actually just last month, for the Ninth American Forest Congress that was held, and the understanding of what our forests provide for us, both as communities in rural settings all the way to urban settings. You know, discussions about heat island effect and shading and what that means for communities, how we plant more trees, how we engage those forests in a really thoughtful way that meets society's needs. And so as we continue to look at what the Forest Service provides in that regards, I would definitely encourage folks to learn more about the Resource Planning Act, because that is a really extensive long-range research data set that helps to establish knowledge and understanding about how these systems work across all land holdings and across a variety of resource concerns, as well as the Forest Inventory and Analysis Program, which is almost 100 years old, of capturing data and inventory of forests and how that land use has changed over time, as well as other important pieces of data that really inform how we go about creating management plans, how we set up certain economies around forest management and access, recreational use, and also for private landowners. So with that, I just say it is truly something that is amazing. I've always been grateful to be a part of those forest land stewards. And I'll leave you with my little favorite saying I say to students all the time: we get paid to go where people pay to go, paid to go. So thank you so much for having me today. Excited to learn more, excited to be a part of this important effort. And most importantly, we're celebrating 125 years of emphasizing science and its importance in our nation's forests. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for working for healthy forests all over the country. People are getting excited in the chat to contact their representatives. Stay tuned. We are going to give you a direct link to contact your representatives after our speakers. So let's go to our next speaker, who is Rachel Britton. And Rachel is a seasoned communications leader with more than 25 years of experience advancing environmental and public policy priorities. Her work reflects a deep commitment to climate resilience, environmental stewardship, and ensuring that science reaches the communities who need it most. She's held senior roles at NOAA, Pew Charitable Trust, Defenders of Wildlife, and American University. Most recently, Rachel was Deputy Director of External Affairs at NOAA before she and her team were let go in a mass firing of probationary employees this spring. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, good morning on the West Coast. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about something that affects every community of people and wildlife across the country, and that's NOAA, the future of NOAA. NOAA within the Department of Commerce is our nation's leading climate, ocean, and weather science agency. Its scientists provide the data and tools that protect our economy, our environment, and our lives. Right now, NOAA is in a workforce crisis. Forecast offices have been forced to scale back round-the-clock operations. Radar repairs are delayed. Offices are stretched thin as we continue into hurricane, wildfire, and severe weather season. When NOAA can't operate at full capacity, the public is left vulnerable. Whether it's a farmer planning ahead, a family in a tornado's path, or a coastal community preparing for a hurricane. In February, 650 probationary NOAA employees were terminated, including me and my entire external affairs team. I had spent 6 years over 2 tours at NOAA, always with positive performance reviews, yet all of our paperwork was coded as if we were fired for cause. This isn't about just one group of employees either. Another 1,500 staff left through early retirements and separation agreements. One of them was the person responsible for flash flood warnings in Central Texas. And NOAA still faces another 17% workforce cut next year. The 2026 budget proposal makes the problem even worse. It would slash NOAA by more than 25%, eliminating the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research and shutting down key climate and weather labs, from the severe storm modelers in Boulder to the Mauna Loa Observatory that has tracked CO2 for 60 years, to the Miami lab that advances hurricane models. It would also reduce satellites, clouding our eyes on the Earth and blinding us when it comes to tracking air pollution, wildfire smoke, and other critical air and ocean data. All of these cuts would come as climate change drives more frequent and intense weather events. This is not just short-sighted, it's dangerous. NOAA's entire budget is about $6 to $7 billion, less than $20 per American each year. And for every $1 invested, NOAA returns at least $6 in benefits, and sometimes more. Forecasts alone save $31 billion annually by reducing weather-related losses. NOAA data underpins aviation, maritime shipping, trucking, agriculture, insurance, energy, and more. NOAA also manages U.S. fisheries through stock assessments and sustainable catch limits. That stewardship supports a commercial and recreational fishing industry worth more than $250 billion and millions of jobs each year. Without NOAA's data, fish stocks could collapse, leading to further economic losses. In short, a small federal investment in NOAA delivers outsized returns. Lives are saved, businesses and natural resources are protected, and the U.S. economy thrives. The bottom line is this: if NOAA is dismantled, Americans are left in danger. Every state and every congressional district depends on this agency. Congress can allow cuts to continue, or it can invest in one of the most cost-effective, life-saving agencies we have. The private sector is neither equipped, prepared, or interested in picking up NOAA's responsibilities. This agency's work is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And if we weaken it, the public and our environment will pay the price. Thank you.
That was so powerful. Thank you so much, Rachel. Folks, we've got to save NOAA. This is critical. Yes, so we greatly appreciate you coming here and sharing these remarks with us. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague at the National Wildlife Federation, Gloria Tom. Gloria is a member of the Dene Nation, the Navajo Nation, and resides in St. Michael's, Arizona. She is our Senior Strategic and Special Policy Advisor, and she previously served on our Board of Directors for 6 years. She was also the Director for the Navajo Nation's Department of Fish and Wildlife for 26 years. She has worked as a wildlife manager, a wildlife biologist, an environmental specialist. She retired from the Navajo Nation this past September after serving the Dene people for 34 years. She also worked for the San Carlos Apache tribe and for USDA's Wildlife Services. Thank you for coming, Gloria.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Diane, for that introduction. As she mentioned, I'm speaking to you from the Navajo Nation, the largest Indian tribe in the country. I make my home here in a small community just outside of Window Rock, Arizona, which is the capital of the Navajo Nation. And as Diane mentioned, for 26 years, I served my people and our wildlife resources as a director for the Navajo Nation's Department of Fish and Wildlife. So my remarks here are basically coming from my perspectives as I carried out this work on behalf of my people here. For generations, tribes have stewarded the natural resources of North America through their knowledge, culture, and practices. Native peoples' connections to the natural environment and its natural elements form the basis of life for Native people. Our connections to the air, soil, water, vegetation, and wildlife are essential to our survival. We depend on these resources for not only sustenance, but also to practice our traditional ceremonies in our cultural ways. We cannot exist as an indigenous person without these elements. This is how valuable the natural environment is to us. In addition to our traditional knowledge, Natives have also embraced Western science in the applications of wildlife management and ecosystem management principles. Tribes have managed natural resources on their lands and established meaningful and productive partnerships with states, municipalities, and the federal government to achieve successful management programs that ensure healthy and viable ecosystems on tribal lands and territories. The relationship that tribes have with the federal government is a very unique relationship in that the relationship is based on the inherent right for each government to self-govern themselves, and tribes, being sovereign entities, enact their own laws and manage their own affairs. In order for this federal tribal trust relationship to be productive and effective, it has to realize mutual respect, consultation, and cooperation. Tribes are heavily dependent on partnerships with federal entities such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the U.S. Geological Services Ecosystem Mission Area programs, the Bureau of Reclamation, and many other interior and agriculture programs within the federal system. Tribal wildlife grants within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service provide funding for tribes to carry out on-the-ground conservation projects that prevent species from being listed under the Endangered Species Act. And these help recover species that are already listed. The tribal wildlife grants are administered through the service's Office of the Native American Liaison, which also plays a critical role in coordinating federal and tribal conservation efforts to effectively manage and conserve fish, wildlife, and their habitats. And one prime example of this partnership along with states and NGOs is to support the recovery of the black-footed ferret. While these animals once were thought to be extinct, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service worked alongside states, tribes, and nonprofit partners to advance the recovery of the ferret, and it continues to do so. So the relationship that has been established is very critical to maintaining these conservation programs on tribal lands. The elimination of these conservation programs or the funding that supports these programs can have dire consequences for tribal conservation efforts. not only in terms of the science, but also as a native way of life. So I urge you to reach out, speak to your congressional representatives, the congressional leadership, urge them to fully fund these conservation programs, urge them to do away with the elimination of these programs because they support such viable systems within our everyday lives. I appreciate your time here this morning and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. The tribal wildlife grants are one of our highest priorities, our legislative priorities here at the National Wildlife Federation. So please, in your remarks to your representatives at the end of this forum, please speak on behalf of the tribes. Our next speaker is Pedro Hernandez, who is Green Latino's California State Program Manager based in Fresno, California. He's led grassroots organizing and policy advocacy across local, state, and federal levels on issues including climate change, clean drinking water, air quality, sustainable community development, and endangered species protections and equitable access to nature. Welcome, Pedro.
Yeah, welcome, and thanks for having me. Again, and also good morning from California. The speakers so far have done a really great job in providing some really like high level pictures of what's going on in the federal government. And I want to kind of take a reverse approach and focus on the monarch butterfly and how we can use one species to understand the broader universe of threats and opportunities that are currently facing us. And so, as many folks on this call might be aware, the monarch butterfly has been in severe species population decline over the last decades. But in terms of opportunities, this is a really great opportunity for us to mobilize and engage the federal government and let them know that we actually are watching and that we do care about these issues. We're in the middle of a administrative takeover. And so most of the threats that we're seeing are coming from the executive branch or from other administrative processes, such as nominating Brian Nesbitt for the head of the Fish and Wildlife Service. So a lot of these actions are actually without the consent of Congress. And so the federal budget cuts, the administrative rules to weaken the Endangered Species Act, and also just more broadly attacks on the budget, again, are coming from the administrative branch of the government. But in terms of what we can do here, we can do actually quite a lot. There is advocating for protections from the state level here in California, but I also want to talk about how engaging disadvantaged and low-income and brown communities can be an important mobilizing tool for us to actually reach these species protections. Here in California and broadly throughout the Southwest, these places are critical overwintering spots for the monarch butterfly. So without engaging the Latino community that largely populates these regions, and without actually mobilizing our decision makers to understand how natural systems work, we can't really get to where we need to go, which is building a long-term movement that's inclusive and can hold on to the wins that we secure for the long term. And so in terms of the monarch butterfly, Californians, Texans, and folks in the United States need to do what we can, because this is also a binational effort. So for the Latino community, monarchs are also very popular in Mexico. They symbolize migration, transformation, even journeys to the afterlife. And so without this like large movement building and without this large mobilization towards decision makers, we can't build the movement to protect one species. But I think these lessons can be easily transferable to build a more inclusive movement for the conservation world and for generations to come. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you from that perspective from California and speaking out on behalf of the monarch butterfly, which many of us love and value as a species. And we are now going to move to some speakers who are the future of science, recent graduates. We're going to hear from Raquel Mandojana, who is a recent college graduate and a member of our team. She is a conservation science fellow on the science team. She has earned a Bachelor of Science in Integrative Conservation and Sociology, and she is already doing amazing work here at NWF and helped us plan this forum. So thanks for speaking, Raquel.
Yes, thank you so much, Diane. Hello, everyone. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience being recent postgraduate. So I started college in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic in the fall of 2021. And in a world of uncertainty, I held on to my goals to work in the conservation field post-grad. At the time, I saw a clear path and felt strongly that this field would be filled with opportunities. But however, as I entered my final semester in January of 2025, I realized that those very opportunities I had been certain of were now riddled with uncertainty. The cuts and layoffs to conservation science is something that I witnessed and experienced firsthand. The challenge recent college graduates like me face at this moment is getting our foot in the door. Just getting our foot in the door. So many of us do not question whether there is a climate crisis, but how we are going to solve it, especially in the midst of our current situation. However, one thing I know for sure is that my generation is one of resilience and passion. We are told over and over that we are living in unprecedented times, and we are learning how to navigate it. When critical progress in conservation is being lost at a time we need it most, we have to work together to stand up for wildlife. Luckily, we are eager to get to work. Giving young professionals opportunities to help is essential, and I'm incredibly grateful to be working with the National Wildlife Federation and having the chance to speak to all of you today. I implore members of Congress to keep the momentum going and give us a seat at the table. Working across generations is how we learn and grow, and how we will be able to be the change everyone wants to see in the world. We bring hope, innovation, new ideas, and enthusiasm, and we just need your help to plant the seed and help us keep and restore crucial resources and programs. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and thank you for all that you're doing to work with us here at NWF. We are also going to hear from Michaela Cornegay, who is a sophomore at Georgia Southern University. She's a graduate of the National Wildlife Federation's Earth Tomorrow program in Atlanta, an amazing program. I encourage you to check that out. She is a dedicated advocate for community and environmental health, and we are grateful for her leadership. Oh, you'll need to unmute. There you go.
Hi, I'm Michaela Epps, and happy to be here. And I want to talk a little bit about why I believe these kinds of programs are like essential. The reason I believe programs like Earth Tomorrow are crucial is very simple. I want somewhere to hang out with my friends in the future. We try to find activities, of course, but every year it seems the list of things you can do gets shorter. Like local malls, all the good shops are closed, and none of us have any money. The park, the temperature is too high to even like think of going outside. And then going to someone's house is hard because nobody has a ride and there's nothing we can do to get places. Our generation inherited two major things: the internet and a boatload of problems. We can chat on call whenever we want, but all we can talk about is the ocean of issues and stuff that we're watching people throw into it: shops, sidewalks, buses, nature, libraries, playgrounds, even childhood itself. I have to fight for change because even though we didn't get much, we do have the internet. We have information and we have possibly a final chance to make things better. I have to fight for change because I've grown up knowing that if I don't, pretty soon it'll be my head that's underwater. And I refuse to sit back and pretend other people's heads also aren't underwater. I have to fight for change because I refuse to drop the next generation into a sinking ship and tell them to get rid of the water without having tried to get rid of it myself. And most importantly, I have to show up for events like this so that I remember I'm not the only person who's angry about it. That's all.
Amazing. Thank you so much. The future is very bright. Seeing what your generation is willing to contribute. Very inspiring. Thank you so much. We have one last segment before we take action. We would like to open up the floor for public testimony. And so we're going to hear from, first, we're going to hear from people who represent advocacy organizations in conservation, our partner organizations. We're going to hear from Jewel Tomasula of the Endangered Species Coalition, which is co-sponsoring this rally, this forum. Thanks, Jewel.
Hello, all. So we need scientific understanding of our shared natural world to know when endangered species protections are needed. And then we need scientists as part of the team for recovery of endangered species. This is true for Mexican wolves in the Southwest, to North Atlantic right whales in the ocean, to monarch butterflies across the nation. On a personal note, I live near the USGS lab that's located in Maryland, and this USGS lab serves the entire nation. but also supports the communities nearby with space to grow native plants and sharing knowledge about native pollinator species. And with the Bee Lab's help, my neighbors and I were working with our city to make our local parks and neighborhoods healthier, more biodiverse, and more beautiful for all. And the uncertainty around the Bee Lab's future has made doing this harder. So just like I know the uncertainty in science funding cuts makes it harder to recover endangered species across the country, we need to fund federal wildlife programs to save species and wildlife artwork that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jewel. We're also going to hear from another amazing organization, the American Bird Conservancy. We're going to hear from Hardy Kern. Thanks for speaking.
So glad to be here. I'm so energized. I cannot wait to get in and take action. And I just want to say a couple weeks ago, I was up on Lake Erie taking a fishing trip with my family. We're in the hotel lobby. I saw a bald eagle out of the corner of my eye. I pointed it out to my father. Somebody next to him overheard, who told some other people. And before we knew it, the entire hotel lobby was pressed up against the windows trying to see the glimpse of this bald eagle flying away. I've seen the same reaction in Washington, D.C., when people are watching cardinals peck apart a granola bar that fell on the sidewalk because birds are everywhere and birds are what connect us. We are experiencing a loss of 3 billion birds in North America right now. And the only reason that we know that and that we have strategies on how to reverse it is because we are letting good science guide our decisions. Science that comes from citizens, science that comes from indigenous groups, science that comes from government agencies that employ people who know what they're doing and give them the freedom to do it correctly. So whether you are hiking in the Pacific Northwest or camping along a river or waiting for the bus and you hear and you see a bird, you're connecting with the natural world. We have over 96 million people in the US that identify themselves as birders. And that's just people who might spend time going out with binoculars. That doesn't account for everyone who sees them and who relies on them to spread our seeds, to pollinate our crops, to prevent pests and other things like that from getting into our homes and our workplaces. And I just want to say that I think the best way to protect the natural world is to connect with it and let science guide us. Because if we didn't listen to scientists, we wouldn't have those bald eagles. If we didn't listen to indigenous knowledge and scientists, there would be zero native species of bird left in Hawaii. And if we didn't listen to scientists and raise our voices, people would think that nobody cares about these issues. But we've got well over 400 people today that know that's not true, and I can't wait to be one of them, raising our voice to make sure that Congress knows we need science, we need birds, and we're going to take action.
Wow. Okay. That is an incredible segue to the next section. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Endangered Species Coalition and the American Bird Conservancy. You all need to join these organizations. We are going to open the floor now for the folks from the general public who registered to give some testimony today. These are going to be very short remarks of just 1 minute. If all the remaining speakers could turn on your cameras now, that would make things faster. And we are going to have to cut people off at 1 minute, so apologies for that because of the short time. But all of your comments will be written and will be sent to Congress in our next action. So we're going to hear from Catherine Kilduff of Virginia.
Hi, I'm Catherine Kilduff, and I'm a mom in Norfolk, Virginia, and I'm also an attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity. And I want to tell you about what happened here on Christmas Eve. My teenage son came home with a picture of a sea turtle that he took on the way home from the gym. And if that sounds weird to you, it is. Sea turtles should not be here on Christmas. And I immediately called the Virginia Aquarium Stranding Program and met 2 of their staff to rescue the cold, stunned sea turtle. I had my dog with me, so they named the turtle Husky. And after months of care, they tagged and released Husky in April. And in 2025 alone, they've responded to 144 stranded sea turtles and 35 stranded marine mammals. These stranding programs exist all over the country, from Florida to Alaska, and federal funding of NOAA fisheries and these stranding programs is vital to keep these programs staffed, collecting data and publishing science about the health of our oceans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will hear now from Bruce Thompson of Washington.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Bruce Thompson, a retired natural resources scientist living in the Pacific Northwest. I speak from research, management, and administrative leadership experience and insight from 47 years in the U.S. military, 3 academic institutions, 3 federal natural resource agencies, and 5 state wildlife and natural resource management agencies. So this is a time-spanning perspective. The ongoing actions of President Donald Trump's administration and selected congressional complicity have produced a continuing, broadly deleterious, and I'd say unprecedented pattern of inconsiderate, insensitive, and extensively non-objective approaches to managing and conserving our nation's natural resources. Those actions are broadly damaging the structure and workforce proficiency available to ensure our nation's resources are effectively stewarded and continue to serve broad public interests and values for the U.S., our allies, and other cooperative international interests. The short way of saying this is I'm punctuating over these 47 years what many others have said already. Please consider these concerns in every way possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. We will now hear from Matthew Gribble of Pennsylvania.
Thank you for your time. I don't have an environmental science degree, although I am well read in modern climate science that the vast majority of climate researchers agree on. I'm a concerned citizen who understands, regardless of source, that greenhouse gases are the primary cause of global warming and that the oceans are warming directly due to greenhouse gases by absorbing heat from the atmosphere. Therefore, we must acknowledge the direct impact of global warming. According to very recent findings, the iconic blue whale, the largest living being on this planet, is going quiet in large areas of the Pacific Ocean that was previously abundant with their songs. Many marine biologists are fearing the worst. Blue whales are starving due to their primary food source, krill, depleting rapidly due to rising global ocean temperatures. Blue whales could be the first to go quiet forever, but it won't stop with them, and it isn't just affecting ocean life. Our backyards, parks, and forests are getting quieter each year from declines in bird populations caused by global warming. The federal government can do something about this and has duties beyond trade, commerce, and national security. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next, we will hear from Emma Ashcraft of South Carolina. Is Emma here? I don't see her camera on. Okay, maybe we can go back to her if she comes on. In that case, we're going to go to Linda Ollinger of North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I live in Hillsborough, North Carolina. I just wanted to say that when I vote, conservation science and the environment are my top priorities. Where would we be without fully functional, healthy ecosystems? When I lived in Wyoming for 23 years, I worked to keep the grizzlies on the Endangered Species Act. In Yellowstone, I saw wonderful things. I saw what the reintroduction of a keystone species could do, the wolf, and how it could completely turn around a decaying ecosystem. I also watched people get so excited to see the wolves up on the hill. People love animals, people love nature, and our representatives need to know that. The National Wildlife Federation does. They've done wonderful things on the Wind River Indian Reservation where I lived. The releasing of the bison, #1. Anyhow, it's tamer down here in North Carolina, but my license plate says on it, you must act now to defend animals. So I just want to say people care, people love science, people love animals, and people love PBS, where they learned everything about nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next speaker will be Dr. Daryl Evans of Florida.
Hey everyone, my name is Daryl Evans. I am here today because I'm an educator, environmental scientist, and a parent concerned about the future world that we're leaving to our children, right? And I want to speak briefly about a keystone species here in Florida, the American alligator. Once endangered, this species really now plays a vital role in maintaining the balance of wetland ecosystems throughout the Southeast. They create habitat for other species, they regulate prey populations, they help sustain the health of entire freshwater ecosystems. And we have places down here like the Florida Circle B Bar Reserve, which allows families, children, researchers to observe these incredible animals up close and personal. So I guess I'm here today to really say that we need to be investing in our future, these species, and a livable future for our children, right? And they're depending on us and on you, Congress, to help make that happen, to make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker will be Jennifer Clark of Washington.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I reside in Washington. I'm also part of a lot of local conservation groups, a security engineer by trade, so not a scientist, but also part of the search and rescue in the area, so familiar with our backyard of woods. And I wanted to speak about wildlife crossing as a topic. That's been a collaboration between state and federal agencies as well as local conservation groups. They science contribution between true scientists by trade and employment, but also about the community getting involved and being scientists as well. So the wildlife crossings have really made a reduction in fatalities between the animals and the humans, but it also creates an advantage for the wildlife to have biodiversity and mate and spread genealogy material between our big highways, I-90 and I-5 in this area make a good barrier for the wildlife, and would like to see the continued partnership with federal agencies and our state.
Thank you so much for your comment. And the next speaker will be Sarah Golden of New York.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Golden, and I'm the founder of Impact for Oceans, a young advocacy group fighting for the expansion and improvement of the Marine Protected Area Network here in the United States. Establishing marine protected areas and monitoring them is essential for marine conservation. These efforts are carried out by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and their work must continue to be funded. Marine protected areas preserve marine life, advance marine science, protect cultural heritage sites, and support our economy. We cannot roll back protections, programs, and funding any longer. I'm calling on my representatives to support NOAA and the essential work they do to protect vulnerable marine life and all of us around the country. We must move forward with the National Marine Sanctuary System and provide NOAA with the necessary resources to keep our oceans and fisheries healthy for years to come. These sites are critical research grounds that help us understand our wild planet and changing climate. So let's save the oceans together. Thank you for your time.
Incredible. Thank you so much. I just want to thank all of the speakers who volunteered comments today. If you like this format and you also would like to give video comments like this, let us know in the chat, because I've just been blown away by all of the comments today, and you all kept us on time. So, are you all ready to take action? Because we are ready to take action. And Sam Lockhart is going to tell us how.
Hi all, I'm Sam Lockhart. I'm the Deputy National Director for Organizing and Campaigns here at the National Wildlife Federation. So grateful to have so many people on today, so many people who signed up, and all of the amazing speakers who shared. But we are greedy. We want all of your voices, not just the ones we got to hear from today in our short hour together. So I'm going to share a little bit about how hopefully you can join us in taking action together. So with that, I'm going to share this QR code. Hopefully this link has been shared in the chat a few times. We'll share it again now, but you can also put up your phone and go to the QR code and take our action alert online. It's very easy. It's a way for you to lift your voice, share your story, your perspective about why these cuts need to stop, and to advocate to members of Congress, not only to protect this funding, but to use their voices to pressure the administration for oversight and to ensure that we protect conservation science going forward. So encourage you to take that action. If you've already taken it, just like when we have regular comments through comment periods that are held through the EPA or other agencies, you can comment more than once. So do it again. Share another story, another perspective. And I encourage you in particular, if you've taken action, but you haven't edited the action to make it specific to your story, you've just used our language, I invite you to use some of these prompts that I'm putting up on the screen now as a way to fill in that action with your own perspective. So my name is blank, protecting the science that protects wildlife, people, places, powered by programs like fill in the blank. What is your highest priority? What did you connect to either from what you heard today or what you already know coming into today? And just share a couple sentences about why you care, and share a story. And I'm going to share an example from a colleague of mine who was on probably many of the emails that you got about this event, but wasn't able to be on today. So this is her story and her great example. Karina Newsome, at Hood_naturalist. If you haven't been following her, she's fantastic. And she talks about the science that protects imperiled coastal species like the seaside sparrow, the air her child breathes. And I'll say, I also have a 3-year-old son. And the natural resources we all depend on is one of my highest priorities. She tells this really specific story about her son and his reaction to birds, and the joy that it gives him, and how it's really all of our responsibility to ensure that the children and the next generation have clean air and ecosystems that support their communities and the wildlife in their backyards, so we can all have that experience of joy and connection. So that's her particular story, just as an example, but hopefully that inspires you. Here's the prompt again. I'm going to give folks actually a minute to go ahead and take this action right now. If you haven't done it already, or even if you have done it already, go in again, take it again, add it, make it more specific, tailor it to your own perspective. I will also share while folks are doing that, and this has been shared in the chat a few times as well. Another great way to contribute your voice is via social media. And so we have a toolkit that makes that really easy to record a video that can go straight to social media. You can tag your members of Congress, so that make sure that they actually see the content as well. And so those are two great things. You can either send the message written, or you can tag it on social media and use the hashtag stand up. I think it just in the chat earlier, stand up for science. Maybe, well, the hashtag prompts are in there, but you should make sure you have the right one. So I apologize. I should have that at my tip of my tongue here. But two great ways to do it. And I will say the action alert goes directly to your members of Congress. So your voice is being delivered there directly. So I'm going to stop chattering so I can give folks a minute to take this if you haven't done it yet. Okay. And hopefully that's been enough time. I'm going to hand things off to Diane to close us out here.
All right, incredible. Thank you so much for everything you are doing by joining us here today and by taking action and writing and calling your representatives. I mean, this is an incredible coalition of people from all walks of life. We've got people of all ages, backgrounds, political parties, parts of the country. All these people are willing to fight for clean air and water and healthy ecosystems and biodiversity. So I know we're going to win, but it's a question of when. And right now is the time to get Congress to act on saving these programs and protecting federal scientists who are working so hard to make sure that everybody has access to nature. So for next steps, I'm going to tell you about 3 things. We, here at the National Wildlife Federation and our partners, we are going to bring all of your comments directly to Congress and deliver them live on Capitol Hill. So we are capturing all of these written comments, we are capturing all of these video comments, and we are taking them directly to your representative. So keep calling and keep writing. They're also going to hear from us. The other thing I would like to ask you to do is to keep speaking out as an individual. So save your comments and your testimonies from today. Share the information you heard. A video of this entire forum will be posted on our YouTube page, so you can share it. And keep speaking out because it matters. Every voice really matters. But you're not speaking out alone. So we're all at our most powerful when we speak out as a group. So the The last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to join one of the groups on this forum. Of course, we'd love for you to join the National Wildlife Federation. We're the nation's oldest and largest conservation group. We work on all the regional and national issues you heard about on this forum. And we have affiliated groups in every single state in the US and in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So join us, join our affiliates. And you can also join one or more of our amazing partners. So big shout out to the America the Beautiful for All Coalition, the Endangered Species Coalition, Insect People. I know you love bees and other insects. You've got to join the Entomological Society of America. Big thanks to the Natural Areas Association. Thank you to Green Latinos. And last but not least, the Wildlife Society. So join one of these groups, join more than one of these groups, because when we all speak out together, our voices get amplified. And we are going to win this fight. We are going to keep fighting for you. We are going to keep working with you to contact Congress and contact your representatives. And thanks so much for joining. Have a really amazing day. We'll see you next time.